Hey, what's up, guys? Boxing with B.
Arrow without the paycheck.
All right, so we saw the trilogy between Joshua Franco and Andrew Moloney.
Great fights.
Yes, and we've caught up with Joshua Franco before, but this time we were actually able to catch up with Andrew Moloney, and you know what? It was a great interview.
Yeah, it was.
It was great to hear all
fighter.
all of the the behind the scenes, and we talked about YouTubers in boxing.
Yep.
We talk about Chocolatito, that division, how stacked it is, and just more about, Andrew and his thoughts in the trilogy and just how it all went. So before
I went
continue,
home, and even COVID was in there because we had to get quarantine and stuff going all the way home. Maybe like a 24-hour flight, maybe at the longest.
Before we continue spoiling it all, here's how it went. First off, thank you so much for joining us, Andrew. How was the flight back? How have you been?
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on the show. The flight back was good. The only positive, I suppose, of COVID is that the airplanes are empty, especially on the way back to Australia. So there's only maybe 10 people on the whole plane.
Wow.
So we have a whole row to ourselves to lay down and get some sleep. So that's good. So I'm now in hotel quarantine. When we land back in Australia, we're not allowed to just go home to our family. We have to do a hotel quarantine for 2 weeks. Where you're basically in a hotel room and you can't leave that room.
Wow.
But thankfully this time I've got a balcony so I can get some fresh air. So that makes things a lot easier.
Oh, wow.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, with COVID, we're going to just dive right into it. But with COVID, I mean, you made your U.S. debut during COVID. And I know people usually tend to think when they make their U.S. debut, they want to see plenty of fans in attendance, that kind of atmosphere. But for you, I mean, you had the whole world shut down. The world shut down. Sports shut down. Professional sports. But Top Rank was one of the few that came back and actually brought boxing to, people that might not tune in all the time. And it was on ESPN. You had the main event. So although there were not any fans in attendance, you still got the exposure as if it was a sold out crowd. What was that experience like?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It was obviously different fighting without fans, but at the same time, because I knew how many people were watching that fight, and just how much exposure the event was getting, because basically everyone's at home and they don't have much to do, so everyone's tuning in to watch the fight, and it still felt like a really big deal. It still felt like everything I'd sort of always dreamt of coming over to America and fighting on the big stage. So they still had that atmosphere, even though there was no one really in the crowd. And yeah, I've been very lucky and very thankful to Top Rank for the opportunities I've had during this pandemic. I've headlined 2 shows in America now and was co-featured to Terence Crawford. So I've had some great opportunities throughout this whole pandemic.
And, coming in during that COVID time, do you think it might have helped your transition in the U.S., having almost like an even platform with no fans in attendance? Was it almost like there was no, as they would say, like home court advantage?
Yeah, a little bit. It was a little bit like that. It was strange fighting without a crowd, but I mean, me and my opponent were both in the same situation there. And yeah, fighting last weekend with a crowd again, and obviously being in America, my opponent, Josh Franco, had quite a lot of fans there to support him. So that did sort of feel like I was the away side, whereas the other 2 fights without a crowd, yeah, you couldn't really notice that at all.
How was it when you're hearing the other coaches, instructions to the fighter? When you had no one there, no noise, all you had was the coaches, you guys yelling at each other. Did you guys ever get confused?
Didn't get confused, but it was strange. You could hear their coach very clearly, and he could obviously hear my coach. So it's sort of, I suppose, a little bit difficult in a way that when your coach is yelling instructions, they can hear what he wants you to do, and I could hear the same thing for Robert yelling out to Franco, and yeah, it's sort of, I suppose you've got to try and use that to your advantage and maybe mix it up and throw something there they're not expecting and sort of go against that advice for a split second.
True. Yeah. You knew what was coming, so you knew how to basically get out of the way too.
Sending some mixed signals out there.
Yeah, that's right. Probably if we realised it was going to be like that, could have come up with a plan to yell out things that mean different things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was a different experience. But I'm thankful now that the crowds are back because the atmosphere last weekend was amazing.
Yeah, the energy must be great. The rumble and everything of the crowds.
Yeah, definitely, especially because it'd been so long. It'd been nearly 2 years since I fought with a crowd. So it was great to have that back and, yeah, the atmosphere to be back in the arena. And, you know, that's what I love as a fighter is those nights. That's what you look forward to during training camp is the atmosphere of fight night.
Yeah. You know what? I have to give you guys credit. When they said there was no crowds and it was on television, I have friends that didn't follow boxing that knew you guys, both of you guys. Oh, Moloney Franco fighting for the trailer. You're going to watch it? I go, of course. I watched it from the beginning. He goes, yeah, we didn't have nothing to watch. So boom, sports was on. Then boom, the fight was on. Man, boxing's great. And there, you guys got more. You guys, little did you guys know, you guys got better exposure from people that didn't even follow the sport at all.
Yeah, that's right. And I suppose that's been the positive with no crowds is that more people are tuning in on TV. And hopefully, you know, the people that don't usually watch boxing now continue to follow the sport going forward.
Yep.
So, you know, your debut turned into a trilogy. You had a trilogy matchup to put under your resume. Aside from the publicity, you know, you fought the same guy 3 times in a row. Is there anything that you can take that you might have learned from that you can apply to, you know, future bouts that you'll have?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, I'm very disappointed that the result didn't go my way and I didn't come home with that world title. But all in all, the experience that I got from that trilogy with Franco will no doubt do me, you know, a world of good going forward in my career. He's a great fighter, and I shared the ring with him for 26 rounds. Wow. So that's great experience for me. And you know, they were tough fights that I'll learn a lot from going forward.
Yeah, you know what? And like you said, they were great fights. And what we keep talking about is so many people that tuned in that usually wouldn't tune in. This trilogy, I think a lot of people that tuned in, they were either 100% Team Franco or 100% Team Moloney. It's especially after the second fight, everyone kind of like took a stance and it was head to head, whether you were Team Moloney, you were Team Franco. No one agreed. You saw that all over social media. But what I really love to see about this sport is when it's all said and done, it is a sport. And then to see you and Franco at the end talk about it, and I saw the Instagram post, and it's like, this is why boxing is called the gentleman's sport. You can talk, you can make the fights exciting. People will tune in, see like the drama about it. But at the end of the day, you know, I just want to read a quote, and it's from actually from social media. Franco actually responded to your post, and then he put, "Nothing but respect for you and your team, Andrew. It was a great trilogy with you, and there's no doubt in my mind that you will be back even stronger." And you actually replied with, "Thank you for a great battle, champion. All the best going forward in your career." Can you talk a little bit about the communication that you had with Franco after the trilogy?
Yeah, that's right. Obviously, you know, during I suppose the heat of the moment in the battle, while we were still sort of in between our trilogy, you want nothing but to beat that person and to become victorious. But there's still a huge amount of respect there for him, and certainly after the battle was over, he's got my respect for sure, and I know that he's a great fighter. And you know, I wish him all the best going forward. Like I said, he's a great fighter, and I look forward to seeing where he goes from here. And yeah, we had a chat. He came into the change room after the fight, and we showed respect for each other. And then again, bumped into him at the airport the following day while he was on his way home. And yeah, we just wished each other all the best and thanked each other for a great battle.
Wow.
See, that's great to hear. It's just so awesome to see things like that. It reminds me of like the trilogy between Gotti and Ward. You see the behind the scenes and they're like, hey, you all right? It's like, yeah, I'm all right. But, to the fans, it's like, Gotti won, no Ward won, no we're this and that. It's like the actual fighters that put on this performance, they have a level of respect, and you guys earn that respect from each other.
Yep.
You guys are, like you said, you shared all these rounds with each other. You're the ones that felt each other's power.
Yeah, that's right. I love that footage. That's sort of, famous footage of Ward and Gaddy sitting next to each other in the hospital.
Yes.
That's cool. And you're right. That's what I love about boxing. And, sometimes people outside the sport give boxing a bad rap and probably think that, we're thugs and we just go out there and fight. But it's a discipline, and there's, us fighters have a huge amount of respect for each other, inside and outside the ring.
Yeah. So what's next for Andrew Moloney?
Yeah, good question. I'm very eager to get back in the ring as soon as possible. So hopefully my plan is to get back in the ring before the end of this year and to get myself back up in the ratings and try and get back in the position to fight for a world title as soon as possible. I think the other champions are all tied up at the moment. I think the fastest route back to a world title for me will probably be with the WBO. Kazuto Aoka is fighting Francisco Rodriguez next week. So I'll definitely be tuning into that fight to see who the winner is and try and get myself in the position to fight the winner of that fight as soon as possible.
Oh, that's great.
And like you said, some fighters in your division that are kind of all tied up, like Chocolatito, Sor Rungvisai, Cuadras, Estrada. These names, your division is just so stacked. I've said this so many times every time I talk about this division. It's so exciting to watch. Before we were watching the Chocolatito fights, everyone kept up with his career. And now, your name, Franco, you guys are in the mix. This is just a division that, the eyes are not going to leave this division right now. In your opinion, between those names, Sor Rungvisai, Cuadras, Chocolatito, Estrada, which of those styles do you think would make for a great fight with your style?
Yeah, good question. And you're right. Firstly, I think it's definitely one of the best divisions in boxing, if not the best. And unfortunately, it doesn't get the attention from mainstream or the wider audience. It's only the real true boxing fans that realize how good the division is.
Yeah.
And so many great fighters in the division that I'd love to share the ring with. Style wise, if I had to pick one, probably Estrada.
Yes.
I'm a fan of Estrada. I actually really like his style, and I've watched him for many years now as a boxing fan first, and then as someone who's in my division second. And I'd love the opportunity to fight him. I think we'd have a great fight against each other. I think his style suits me, and hopefully we can make that fight happen sometime in the future.
Oh, your name is well known now, and I definitely see that fight coming. Definitely see that. That'd be a heck of a fight. Yeah.
And you know what? We're definitely gonna tune into that.
We'll tune into that one.
Yeah. I noticed too that the WBA has mandated Franco to fight Chocolatito next. Hopefully that fight happens, because I know the WBC also has their own little tournament going on where the winner of Estrada and Chocolatito is supposed to fight the winner of Rungvisai and Cuadras. So I don't know what's going to happen there. But Franco and Chocolatito is a fight that I look forward to seeing as well. Very interesting, because I think that Franco is quite a bit bigger than Chocolatito naturally, and quite strong for the weight. So I hope that fight happens. I'd love to see how Franco goes.
Oh, yeah.
Like I said, this division is just so exciting. Even just to hear your thoughts on it and your responses, and to hear you say that you would want Estrada, it's like, this just adds to why everyone should be tuning into this division. It's no excuses on maybe I should fight, maybe I should take this fight or this fight and then work my way back. It's like, no, you're calling out, if Estrada was there, if that opportunity was there, you would take that fight tomorrow. Like, it's a great response to hear. It just adds to the excitement, like I said.
100%. Yeah, and I'd love that fight. And I think that's another thing too. Like these lighter weight divisions, the unification fights are happening, and the best fighters are fighting the best. Whereas you don't see that in some of these other divisions that get a lot of attention, like the welterweight division or the lightweight division. You know, there's some great fighters in those divisions, but unfortunately, it's very rare that you see them fight against each other.
Yep.
Yeah, it's very true. Were you able to tune into the Ugas Pacquiao fight? If so, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I was. We watched that. It was good. It actually gave us something to do while we're stuck in this hotel room.
Yep.
So it was great that fight was on. And very impressed with Ugas.
Yes.
I knew he was a great fighter, but obviously I know he was in training camp and supposed to fight, but to fight Pacquiao on 2 weeks' notice, and obviously then fighting a southpaw who has a pretty unique style, for him to make those adjustments and come up with a game plan in only 2 weeks and to basically absolutely fight that game plan to a T. He controlled that fight so well, especially from sort of the middle rounds onwards. I was really impressed with how well he controlled Pacquiao and took away all his strengths and, kept behind his jab and kept the fight mainly at long distance. And, yeah, it was a really good performance.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I mean, I think a lot of people were very upset that, we didn't see Errol Spence versus Pacquiao, but I think those that tuned in were very surprised and were very satisfied with
It was a
with
great
the fight
fight.
that we
It
got
was
to
a great
see.
fight still.
Yes. Now, before I let you go, I have to ask this too. With the YouTubers coming into boxing, and I ask this because I think a lot of people think of the YouTubers in a very lighthearted and comedic way, and they kind of give them the ticket of like, oh, well, they're YouTubers, they'll do what they do and they're promoting them. But in plenty of interviews, I've heard you say, boxing is your life. And, this is your livelihood and the livelihood of your family. It means a lot. And I understand that. I mean, I can totally picture, this is your career. How do you feel about YouTubers that are coming in like Jake Paul, coming in, taking the spotlight, and they're headlining and they don't wear headgear and they're considered professional fighters?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think there's positives and negatives from the whole thing. They do bring a lot of eyeballs to the sport, and hopefully those people that tune in then continue to follow boxing and the sport grows as a whole. But yeah, on the other hand, I know that they have sort of made their name outside of boxing and deserve respect for that. But I mean, it is a little bit frustrating that guys like myself and other fighters that have given their life to this sport and made so many sacrifices and trained so hard for so many years, make like maybe 1/10 of what these guys make from in their fights, or not even that. So it's a little bit frustrating that some of these guys can come and have like what is basically a little exhibition and, not really put themselves at risk, but walk away with a lot of money.
Yeah.
But I will say that Jake Paul he seems to be taking this sport serious, and he wants real fights, and seems to be training very hard and sort of taking this sport very seriously, and not just trying to come in here and steal people's money and put on a fight that he's guaranteed to win. He's taking tests and calling out all the biggest names, which I'll give him credit. If he actually wants to fight these guys, that he's got a ton of heart. And yeah, he seems to be taking the sport seriously and not making a joke of it. So I respect that.
I've been watching that. I like it that he's fighting ex guys, and he's fighting UFC guys that are not boxers. I'm waiting for him to fight. I don't even care if it's a boxer that's retired and came out of retirement. They say Andrew Ward. They say Ward got something because you know what? This guy thinks he's all that. I'll come out of retirement and fight him. That'll be a different story when he actually fights a boxer, not a UFC fighter, not someone who wrestles, but someone, like you said, dedicated his life to be a boxer. And he meets somebody that knows how to throw a faster jab, knows what's coming, knows how to move, knows how to avoid everything. Then we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. So far they have sort of picked their fights quite smart, and he's fought UFC fighters that, especially his last one, that Askren was known as not a very good striker.
Yeah.
So they have been smart about it. But yeah, you're right. It's going to be interesting when he steps in the ring with a true boxer that has, dedicated their life to this sport and learnt the craft properly.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, it was great, meeting you, talking to you. Thanks for, giving us some of your quarantine time.
No, my pleasure. Thank you for killing some of my time. The time goes very slow in here, so it's been good chatting to you.
Thank you. And good luck
Good luck,
in your
and can't wait
career.
to see you next fight.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.